So what I hope to do in this video is to help you with some test writing strategies. This one in particular is going to focus on multiple choice questions, and we're going to look at some strategy and even a few examples that are going to hopefully be helping you when you write any sort of multiple choice on a quiz or an exam in the future. My first piece of advice to you when writing a multiple choice test would be to complete the multiple choice questions on the exam, not on the scantron sheet. And the reason I ask you this is because you're less likely to be psyched out by 4 C's in a row. We've all been there where we see 4 C's in a row and we're like, oh, the next one can't actually be C. But if we do it on the exam, we're less likely to be psyched out by that kind of thing. The next tip I can give you is to highlight important aspects of the question stem. The stem is just the part that's actually asking the question, the part that follows, number 1. And you can do it by highlighting it, you can underline things, you can circle things. Any of these things will point out the important parts of the question so you can actually focus and remember that kind of thing. The next tip I'll give you is to read each answer very carefully. Oftentimes there's 2 answers that are very, very close, and if you don't read and you only pick the first one you see, you may be missing out on the other answer that is actually correct. Most mistakes on exams are reading errors, so make sure you read very carefully. This goes question and answer inclusive. Once you've read everything carefully, eliminate as many of the answers as you can using your logic. Your logic plays a huge role in a multiple choice test because you can oftentimes eliminate 2 of the 4 answers and leaving you with the 50-50 chance, and even then, even further logic will take you to the correct answer. If at this point you cannot decide, move on to another question. You'd be surprised how often you can grab a hint from a question later on in an exam for the one that you got stumped on. Once you finish the exam, double check your answers and make sure they're correct. Once you know they're correct, you can fill your final answer onto the scantron. So it says use the following information to answer the next question. I see an orange, there's an A and a B, each with an arrow pointing to particular parts of the fruit. So what I'm going to do now is read the question and underline any important parts of it. It says the row that correctly identifies the fruits and structures shown above is, and I have a whole bunch of selections here. Now the reason I put this question on is oftentimes you'll get these big chart questions asking multiple things, so the easiest way to do it is to break it down into small chunks. So what I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to look at the first column here, and it's the fruit column. So between the 4 rows, I have 2 options. It's either an orange or a grapefruit, and because I was awesome and studied my fruits before this exam, I know that this is definitely an orange. If it's definitely an orange, it definitely cannot be a grapefruit, so look what happens. I put an X beside each of those, and I can eliminate answers B and D right off the bat. So I'm going to move on to the structure A part of the chart. I can see A is pointing to the outside of the orange, and I have the options of either rind or pulp. Now I studied my fruits, but I didn't study the anatomy of each fruit, so I kind of forget whether it's the rind or the pulp. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave this column for now and go to structure B. Unfortunately for me, B is still pointing at something I don't know, whether it's the pulp or the rind. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to this question. I'm going to circle the number 1 or put a question mark or a star or something like that so I can come back to it later. I might be able to grab a hint from a later question. So I'm going to move on to question 2. Use the following information to answer the next question. So I'm going to read and highlight any important things. The pink flesh of the grapefruit is rich in nutrients. So I see that the pink flesh is the part that's rich in nutrients. That's probably something to remember. So it continues on to say that people who consume the pulp of this fruit, pulp meaning pink flesh, I think, that they will gain boost to their immune system and essentially prevent them from getting a cold. So if I don't want to get sick, I should probably eat lots of grapefruit. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to read the question, and it says the nutrient responsible for the immune system boosts is known as a vitamin. So vitamin, and I have a whole bunch of options here. I have D, C, B9, and A. Now be very careful on a question like this because we can see that answer A is corresponding to vitamin D and vice versa, that answer D is corresponding to vitamin A. So we need to be very careful on our selection to make sure we're selecting the right vitamin. So I've read all the answers, so I'm going to try and eliminate as many of them as I can. And I can recall something that when I eat my cereal every morning, I always read the nutritional label on the milk for whatever reason because I'm bored eating my cereal. And what I'm going to do is I remember that vitamin D is in milk, and it has something to do with bone strength. So that's probably nothing to do with immune system boosting. So I'm going to turn my attention to answer B, which is vitamin C, and I'm pretty sure I remember my teacher saying something about vitamin C. If you're sick, you should eat some vitamin C. So I'm pretty sure that's from citrus fruits, so I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to just leave that one. I'm not going to cross it out just yet. I'm going to continue on to the other answers. Now, answer C is indicating vitamin B9. Now, if I recall, my teacher said something that's in like spinach, and it's good for cell divisions, prevents spina bifida, and all that good stuff. So that probably has nothing to do with your immune system. So I'm going to cross that one out for now. And lastly, answer D is referring to vitamin A. Now, I always remember when I was growing up that my mom always said I have to eat my carrots because they contain vitamin A, which is good for my vision. So it obviously has nothing to do with the immune system. It's all about your eyes and getting better vision. So I've made these notes beside each answer, and I can be pretty confident that my first assumption that it was vitamin C, which is answer B, I can be pretty certain that that is the answer to this question, so I can circle it. I feel pretty confident in my answer for number 2, but the best part is I have now found a word pulp, and I remember this from question 1, so that's probably this fleshy part that it's showing in both of these pictures. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to question 1 and use that information to help me answer that part where I got stumped. So I'm back at question 1, and I can see that structure B, I know that's the pulp. I saw that in the other question. The grapefruit has pulp as well, so I'm going to put some check marks by pulp. And if structure B is the pulp, it's definitely not the rind. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put little X's by those as well. So I can see that I've eliminated these two right here, the second and third rows. So I'm going to go over and eliminate the further rows. I can see that I've already eliminated B because of this grapefruit, but now I can even eliminate C as well. So I'm going to do that. So I've eliminated 3 of the 4 answers, which is good news for me. Now I'm definitely going to go to structure A and just be sure. Now through the process of elimination, I know that B was the pulp, so A definitely cannot be the pulp because it's pointing to something different. So I'm going to put little X's by those, which means structure A needs to be the rind. So I'm going to put little check marks by those. What I'll do now is I'll just double check my answer. I have 3 eliminated. The one that I have remaining, it has check marks in everything. So I'm going to just double check that it is an orange. That would make sense because I know that's an orange because I studied. And this one here is the rind. I've now figured that out through the process of elimination using the other question to help me out. And now I have structure B as the pulp, and I got that from the other question. So I can be very confident that this answer is A. Because I'm confident in my answer, I can now erase these 3 little marks that were showing my indecision before, and now I will know that I am very confident when I double check it that this answer is A. So what I'm going to do, I'm now done questions 1 and 2. I'm going to go on to the last question, question number 3. And again, this one says, use the following information to answer the next question, and it has a title of Random Order of Events in the Baking of a Cake. I don't know about you, but that cake on the side, that looks mighty tasty. So let's see if we can read the question and follow these events so we can bake that cake ourselves. If I read these events very quickly, I can see that I'm either baking the cake, I'm measuring ingredients, I'm pouring the batter into the pan, I'm allowing the cake to cool, or I'm mixing the ingredients up. So the question reads that the steps that would be followed to ensure the successful baking of a cake are, and it gives us 4 options here, each with a different order of events, so we can bake that delicious cake. Now the reason I stuck this on is because oftentimes you will get these kind of ordering questions, and there is kind of a little bit of strategy to them, so let's try that right now. Now I forgot to study how to make a cake because I was so busy studying on how to sort out the difference between an orange and a grapefruit, so I've totally forgotten how to make a cake, so let's see if I can reason this through. So usually the best thing to do is to take a look at the first set of events, and I can see here that 3 of the answers have number 2 and 1 of the answers has number 3. So I can see here that should I be measuring the ingredients first or should I be pouring the batter into the pan? Well, to me, if I recall, you can't really have batter without mixing the ingredients up, so I can probably eliminate answer D. So I looked at the first set of steps, and now I'm going to look at the last set of steps. So I'm going to see here that 3 of them have number 4 and 1 of them has number 1. So what do you think is going to be the last step in this? Is I'm going to be allowing the cake to cool, or am I going to be baking it? You probably need to bake it before you can allow the cake to cool, so I can probably eliminate answer A now. So I've used my logic to eliminate both A and D. So now I just have to make the decision between B and C. Now let's see if I can do that. So they both start with step 2, measuring the appropriate ingredients. Okay, that would make sense. Now they move forward. Their next step, they each have number 5, which means they're mixing ingredients after that. So that would make sense as well. So I'm going to move on to the third step, and this is where it starts to be a little bit different. So after mixing my ingredients in both B and C, should I be baking that bowl in the oven at 375, or should I be pouring the batter into a cake pan? Last I checked, you generally would bake a cake in a cake pan, so you probably need to pour it in there first. So I can imagine that number 3 would come before number 1. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to eliminate answer B. So that leaves me with answer C as the only one left. Now, if I was to go through and follow the steps in C, so it says measure the ingredients first, which is number 2. Go to number 5, which is mix the ingredients. Then I will be pouring the batter into a cake pan, baking it, and allowing it to cool before icing. That would make sense for me, so I'm going to circle answer C. Now, even though I forgot to study how to make a cake for this exam because I was too caught up in the orange grapefruit drama, I can be pretty confident that by looking at the first step and the last step, right off the bat, I can see and I can eliminate a few answers and then eventually use as much logic as I can and to come down to answer C, which I am pretty confident in. I'm pretty sure that's how you bake a cake. You'll notice that the content in these videos has been simplified, but it's the strategies that I want you to focus on. Make sure you're writing all over your test, crossing out answers, crossing out charts. If one part of the chart is incorrect, then the entire row may be incorrect. These are things that you want to try on your quizzes and exams. So you'll see that all 3 examples that we talked about, there is a little bit of an art and even a science to answering multiple choice questions. Make sure that you practice these on quizzes and exams as well, and hopefully your multiple choice percentages will go up, and hopefully you learn something from this video. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been staring at that cake for some time now, so I'm going to go get something to eat, so I'll see you next time. By doing this, you can avoid those bad eraser marks that sometimes cost us a question on an exam, but you do need to make sure that you are aware of your time, so you do leave time to fill in your scantron at the end of the exam. So let's go ahead and look at a couple examples.